think the financial literacy is tough. And I know there's a lot of people on social media that are kind of starting to work on this financial literacy. Obviously, it's something that you guys are doing. And I think that's so important because I didn't do any of that. And my wife and I would be in a better position now if we started.
Welcome to Beyond the Game, Wealth Mastery for Athletes. I'm Chris Benson, private equity real estate investor, and I'm joined by 9-year NFL vet Alec Ogletree. Beyond the Game is a podcast where we will provide a playbook for financial growth both on and off the field. Join us each week as we'll have in-depth conversations with other pro athletes as they walk us through how they've created wealth beyond the game, both on and off the field. They're going to share their triumphs, lessons learned, and setbacks along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes. Join us. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. Well, today we had a good one on Beyond the Game. We talked to Joe Holland, a Purdue Boilermakers legend. Played for 3 teams in the NFL over a 2-year period and shared with us his journey from playing in the NFL to owning his own dentistry practice. Not just the practice, but the real estate, how he thought about that. I really loved his perspective on learning how to lead people because that was a new thing for him. He also just has some good nuggets of information on the transferable skills from being a high-level athlete and transferring that to his time as a business person. He's still very much in the early stages of his journey, but a lot of good lessons to learn from Joe and what he's gone through thus far. So I think you're going to enjoy the episode. Stick with us. We hope you enjoy it as well. Joe Holland, Purdue legend, welcome to Beyond the Game. Appreciate you taking the time today.
Of course, I appreciate you guys both having me.
Appreciate
For those of you guys
Joe.
Not watching on YouTube, Joe is an Italian kid, dark hair, bright red hair, strong Irish Catholic background. Joe, here's the question I have. We're gonna kick off with this. You are 10 years out from your playing career into a fantastic career in dentistry. We're going to get into your most recent niche, which it sounds like is diamond girls for professional football players. We'll get into that. What advice to your son, who you just had, Foster, your month old?
Hey, congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
In the first 10 years of your business career, what advice would you give to Foster right now if he could understand what you were telling him?
Chris, you are wasting no time. That's a great way to jump right in. You know, and I think that what's been really interesting in my career is the amount of work that leads up just to being able to practice dentistry. You kind of have to have this plan in place as an undergrad. You have to have a major that's going to allow you to go to dental school. You have to get into dental school. And all the while, all I cared about was football. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, I was doing my best at Purdue University. So in hindsight, I think for Foster, you know, God willing, one day he grow up into a strong, capable boy, is start to get an idea of what you want to do early on. You don't have to stick with that. You can change at any point, but getting an idea of what I wanted to do early on, I knew I wanted to go to dental school. I knew I wanted to own my own practice. I knew I wanted to own the real estate of my practice. And having that plan, or at least having an idea of the direction I wanted to head in, has, I really think, expedited that process of me having my practice, buying the real estate for my practice, and hopefully setting my family up for some success, you know, moving forward.
Man, you more than just a dentist, man. You went on to talk about you wanted to own the practice, so that take you into being in real estate. Like, obviously Chris does real estate. I do a little bit of real estate myself, but you coming up knowing that, like, okay, I want to get into dentistry. And was that something in your family history or something like that? Or was it just something that you just saw on TV? Like, what sparked you? What made you make that choice so early?
No kid ever wants to be a dentist. It's
Why
the
not?
worst place
People
to go
want to be
ever as a child.
You
got to come see me.
Be astronauts. What's wrong with you, Chris? Everybody don't want to be.
No, Alec, that's a great question. And actually, it's a question that I answer probably weekly. because just like Chris said, a lot of people were like, what took you in this direction? I'm very fortunate to have two professional parents. My dad's in law and my mom is an optometrist. So eye doctor. Yep. And she owned her own practice. And as a kid, I always thought it was so cool that she had Holland eye care. We would drive past her practice all the time. I would always show it off to my friends. Oh, here it comes. It's coming up. And I just thought that was so cool. And then to know that she wasn't really answering to anyone. Hey, Mom, spring break is March 10th. Okay, cool. We're shutting the office down. We're going to go somewhere. So when I got to Purdue for my undergrad, I was going to go pre-med. I was all set up to go pre-med. I wanted to be a physician, go to med school and do the whole deal. And I was leaving I was redshirting. And Alec, you probably don't know anything about that, but that sucks. That's a tough first year. And I really wasn't, you don't really feel like you're part of the team. So I was like, this is a great opportunity to 1 year to really kind of focus on academics, get that ball rolling. And then once I finally have the opportunity to play, let's take advantage of it there.
See, man, hold on. I didn't mean to cut you off. It sucks, but it doesn't suck because when you got to play, you got to be like, you don't get to go to those classes and do all that stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like, you get a chance to go and like, actually, like you said, focus on what you want. Like I went to Georgia. I was like, man, I know I'm here to play ball. Like at this point, I got to do enough to be on the field. You know what I mean? Because we weren't allowed to really go be in these different classes. Like you may have been able to take a class that was during most of the time they telling us to go train or do all this stuff. You know what I mean? Because you got so many people on the team, right? And the scholarship kids or whatever that are there, they have certain times they tell you only do this. And then, so I didn't mean to cut you off, but.
No, that's fine. Well, and that it brings up another great point. I'll tie it in, but all the team doctors were sitting around and they don't know me. Like I said, I'm a true freshman. Yeah. They don't know. But I said, what an opportunity to like get a feel for how these guys feel about their profession. And I walked in and I said, do you guys, basically in fewer words, do you enjoy being a doctor? And of course they all said yes, but they were noticing this shift in medicine from being able to have like a private practice where you have full decision-making and full autonomy and you can run things the way you want to run it to more of a commercialization of that field. And these are older guys that have, they kind of practiced during like the golden age of medicine. So they lived through this shift. And I said, okay, well, I would love to own my own practice. And they all almost collectively said, do you think you could find some interest in teeth? And I was like, I can't see why not. So I would say, Chris, to your point, no, I wasn't a little kid, practicing drilling on my stuffed animals or anything. But I knew I wanted to go into medicine. I knew I wanted to own, and dentistry really more than anything just kind of provided that avenue. Now, Alec, I will say I had to change my major because after I redshirted, I was doing kind of the bio route and I had a good spring and it looked like I was going to be playing that following year as a redshirt freshman. So they had the sit down conversation, like you said. Yeah. You take this class, you're missing this practice. And that's not practice. It ain't gonna so happen. I had to change my major technically to something that was a little less like lab oriented. All the labs were in the afternoon. You can't miss a Tuesday practice because you're in the bio lab.
And you think you're gonna play on Saturday? What?
Not a chance.
You weren't even here to practice. What are you talking about? Nope. Gonna play?
Not a chance. So I did switch it worked out. I would have been really upset had it not, but they got me there.
Yeah. We sure. Had to change it. No, that's awesome there.
It's so funny to me. We talk about this, Joe, with a lot of guests where there's like a moment or some catalyst in your life that completely changes the direction that you go. And maybe it was, the trainers in the locker room or the physicians on the team who looked at you and said, do you like teeth? And that gives you a whole different path that you're living out now. And maybe it's not your whole career, but certainly the first 10 years of your professional career has been built on that. It's just fascinating to me where there's always that thing or somebody says something or they read something and then it's a completely different direction. It's just always, I don't know if it's a a universe thing or like a karma thing, but it's fascinating to me how people end up in the directions that they do.
Sure. Well, and I didn't even ask him because I was set. I was happy with the med school route, and there wasn't any point that was steering me away from that. But Chris, like you said, like there was this draw of like, when else am I going to have 8 doctors sitting around a table just kind of, talking?
Full of information.
Right. Like real quick, like let's use this round table and get some. And yeah, that ended up kind of being that jumping point for where we are today.
It is always fascinating to me. And what I think about too, Joe, is like, was it that moment? Did dentistry come back to you? Because obviously football became a priority, right? You had a storied career at Purdue, a very successful career there. Was in the back of your mind, were you always churning dentistry, or was there a path in your mind to pro? I was going to have a pro career post collegiate.
Yeah, you're kind in how you describe my career. So I think I was pretty realistic. I knew that. So I was playing as a redshirt freshman, way undersized. And I knew the plan was to kind of grow into this. I played outside linebacker to kind of grow into this position. And so my freshman year, I don't think anyone would have thought, hey, this guy's even going to start as a sophomore. It's like, we've got to have a better guy on the pipeline, right? But I kept developing, kept getting bigger, faster, stronger. I kind of grew into that position so that by my junior year-ish, I was comfortable. I was making plays. I wasn't coming off the field at all. And then it was my senior year. So going back, like the redshirt thing was the best thing that could have ever happened because I had a really strong senior year. I was fortunate enough to stay healthy my entire career.
They had a plan for you, Joe.
What's that?
They had a plan for you.
They did, yeah.
They had a plan for you.
By the time I was a senior, I said, okay, maybe this may happen. But I didn't have enough of that confidence thinking that it almost probably played into my favor a little bit, saying, hey, I'm going to have to get a job. As soon as I'm done with college football, I'm going to have to do something. This is a blast, but I'd watch games. I'd watch guys like Alec on Sunday. I'm a little older than you, but guys similar to Alec. And be like, man, I can't do that. But I grew into it, and I was accepted into dental school before I knew anything about what the future held for post-college. So we were getting ready for our bowl game my senior year. I got the acceptance letter to go to Indiana University for dental school. And I had that. I was going to go test the waters and see what we could make happen professionally, but I knew I had that backup plan.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's everybody, like you said, you're blessed for one. Everybody don't get the opportunity. Some of them leave school without that. Like I left as a junior. Like I didn't backup plan wasn't no degree.
It's funny you say that because my first training camp was with the 49ers.
Yeah.
In
what year?
2012.
So you dealt with Mike T. Stupar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Great guys.
Yeah.
But that was such a leadership driven team. And Harbaugh could Harbaugh was still doing his thing in terms of his team management. That was actually really cool to see. But they had.
Wait, what's that mean? What do you mean doing his thing with a smirk of team management? He's a crazy person, isn't he?
Okay, yeah, he's just quirky. He's quirky as hell. And we would have full team meetings, full meetings, like install days. Like I need to hear like this kind of stuff. We wouldn't do a thing. He would get some thought in his mind.
Hey, go with it.
And it almost always involved Pete Carroll. And it was like, what can we do to beat the Seattle Seahawks? And it's like OTA number 4. We're talking mid-May. And we were supposed to be installing cover 4. And we're talking about, maybe what hotel we're going to stay at in Seattle to make sure that everyone's well rested for the so
hey, that was a team to beat. That was a team to beat. Like it wasn't no question. It was like it was Seattle or 49ers. That's literally all it was. But
it was really cool being on a team that had that leadership. It was just a bunch of veteran guys that it was Super Bowl or bust.
Yep.
And they did a really good job of getting around the rookies. Like even guys like me, like very fringe bubble guys.
Yeah.
So these the lunches would be pretty well integrated. And I remember there was a day where I was sitting with Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, Randy Moss, Jonathan Goodwin. And I'm just looking around like okay.
They just regular dudes, just chilling. They talking about any and everything. Yeah.
And I was sitting with Mike T.
Yeah.
Wait, Randy Moss played for the 49ers?
Yes.
When? Before the Patriots?
Yes.
2012.
No.
Did he
play for the Patriots after that or before?
I think he played with the Patriots before.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm
sorry,
sure.
Joe. Just threw me off.
Yeah. Well, me too. Like, what am I doing?
I'm pretty sure it was before.
I'm not sure what the timeline was, but yeah, he was on that team for a year. This was
Who was the quarterback?
The year they transitioned from Alex Smith to Cap.
That's right.
Dude, so y'all, I remember they played. Y'all were playing us with the Rams, and Jolon Dunbar. He talking about he came in the game and knocked out Alex Smith, and that's how Kaepernick got to go in.
Okay.
And
and that's funny because that was. I think that was kind of in the pipeline. I think Cap was going to take over that season anyway.
Yeah.
That was kind of the plan.
Yeah.
But I remember the Patrick Willis, like what an unbelievable guy. And he asked the other rookies sitting around the table, like, so you get cut tomorrow, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I was accepted into dental school. And Jonathan Goodwin, who had won a Super Bowl with the Saints, looked up and said, what the hell are you doing here? and I kind of caught me off guard, but then I realized, like, okay, he's been there, done that. You know, he was hurting. He would practice in tennis shoes because cleats hurt his feet. Oof. I mean, it was just one of those things, but hard to probably put himself back in my position. You know, if they would have said, you know, you'll make the team if we cut off your pinky, I'd probably say, okay, that's a pretty good deal. So, but I just thought that was interesting. It's like, okay, these guys that have been there and done that, you know, would they all do it over again? Yeah, probably. But it does take a toll.
It does.
So that was another one of those things. Like, I'll probably remember this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. No, that's awesome to, like you said, just to have that veteran presence there too, which was, I think, helpful for me as well. Like I said, I had Joe Long, I had James Laurinaitis, all them guys like that. So they had been in the league, you know, done it at the house. Joe Long won the Super Bowl with the Saints, right? That year they won.
Alex, how many Super Bowls did you win?
Super Bowl, man, I made it to the playoffs one time. What are you talking
about? Joe, we had Cliff Averill on a couple weeks ago, and behind him,
I played with Cliff.
Yeah, so behind him on his desk is the Lombardi Trophy, and so every once in a while he'd look at Alec and just kind of turn around and look at the trophy and look back at him.
Hey, listen, we had our battles for sure. Yeah, we had our battles there. We didn't make it easy for him. I'll tell you that.
No. Cliff was that guy that I was a true freshman when he was a senior at Purdue.
Okay.
And he was that guy I would look at being like, okay, that's what a college football player looks like.
Yeah.
Like he was a monster.
Yeah. No,
you know what he talked about, Joe? One of the favorite part of my interview our interview with him, he's doing a bunch of real estate stuff still in Seattle. He's tapped into the community, has a really strong foundation up there. But one of the things he talked about in the locker room was he and who was it? Mike?
Was it Red Bryant?
No, Mike Bennett.
Yeah, Mike Bennett. Yeah.
They controlled the radio in the locker room, and so they'd have like education days where instead of playing music, they'd play like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and like all the young guys in the locker room be like, "No, I don't want to hear any of this." And Alec goes to him, he's like, "But they didn't come change the radio, did they?"
Man,
he's like,
"Nope, that radio. They want
They wanted no part of changing it. But like you said, that veteran, that's what he talked about is in the locker room, he was getting fed from, you know, guys like, hey, you got to start thinking about what's going to happen after. And he was just trying to pass it down, right? Like he talked about getting involved in his first real estate syndications, and his first real estate investments were guys saying to him, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm not doing anything. I just got some guy that I send my money to and hope that it's all going to turn out. I love that kind of the passed down thought of, you know, how can they pay it forward for the information that they got? It sounds like you got little touches of that along the way.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's absolutely no shame in using your athletic career to further your professional career. I mean, why wouldn't you? You get experiences that I mean, I was on 3 teams over 2 years, and I feel like I've got stories for days just because you're around like the guys that you're around, the coaches you're around, to see people at the top of their game and to see what's possible. I mean, you could apply that to anything. And I'll say, like, when I got to dental school, it wasn't easy, but like I had already done harder stuff. Training camp for me was much harder than anything I did in dental school. You see some other people that went straight from undergrad to dental school and hadn't really. But again, my life has not been hard at all. I mean, I'm not trying to paint that picture, but you face the first moment of adversity, and they're just sitting outside the room bawling their eyes out. And it's like, come on, like that. Just get up, come on.
No.
So
sure.
I think, yeah, there's no reason not to lean on that. I mean, I think it helped my dental school application having played college football, I think. And if that was a big reason why I got in, then great. I'll take it.
No, I believe just like sports in general just kind of teaches you like how to push through things, like through the adversity and stuff like that. So it's like you have an opportunity, especially you get a chance to play at the highest level, no matter how short or long you think it is. Like it's not easy to do that, number one. Number two, it's even harder to stay in it as because at some point you're going to leave that game no matter what, right? So you got a short time, you take what you can from the game, and you, like you said, you can apply it to anything you do in life, and that's even from a little kid. Like, Chris, you're an adrenaline junkie. You trying to act like you don't play any sport, but you out here playing hockey, you out here racing cars and do all, like, you know how much focus you got to take to race a car 100 miles an hour around the corner and not blink like, oh, okay, I ain't going to flip this car. I'm just going to turn or jump it, or even just to jump out of a helicopter and be like, okay, I'm going to jump out of this helicopter onto the side of this mountain, but nobody's at, it ain't no houses, no nothing. I'm going to ski down this mountain. Like,
Alec and I have two different buckets of things we like to do for fun. Alec likes to play tennis. I like to go fast. Joe, what are those translatable things? Like, what is tangibly, like the things you're going to put foundationally into foster your son, right? Like, what are those things that you hope he walks out with that you took from sport to, let's call it dentistry / business?
Another great question. I think it's hard to not sound super cliche when you're talking about this, but it really is. I mean, it's kind of like the tried and true, let's knock out the cliches, the determination, the work ethic, facing adversity. But I think the other thing is that really you can draw from is, again, you're getting around these guys that you wouldn't be around otherwise. And you're kind of starting to see, it can really elevate you, obviously athletically, but you see a lot of these guys that then go do it, like we talked about Cliff, with the real estate and everything. You talk about these guys that are then going on and doing these great things. And it shows you what's possible and what's available out there. I think Joe Tiller was the coach at Purdue, a legendary coach when I first got there. And one thing that he would say it every year when we would be voting for the captains is that he thought being voted a captain was the greatest accomplishment or achievement that you could have at college. Obviously, it'd be great to be an All-American or anything, but that means you have the respect of your teammates. So I was voted captain my senior year, and I remembered what Joe Tiller was saying. And you kind of look back and you're like, man, like I was not a leader. I didn't say a word my freshman year. I was scared. But to develop like the leadership skills that are developed over the course of your time, and some of that comes with success, some of that comes with seeing other guys do it. But I think a lot of it just comes with the confidence that you gain by doing something in sport, and that can be in any sport. So I think the big thing that, I joke with my wife all the time, and she doesn't love it, but I think she's starting to believe it. You want a little bit of a screw loose, just enough.
Just enough. If
just
you play
enough.
football and you made it you got a screw loose.
Just enough. Yeah.
Just
and you can really use that to your advantage. I think I mentioned buying a practice and then buying the real estate. I probably a little bit earlier than I would have thought on any of these things. but up to this, maybe one day this will get me in trouble, but up to this point, things have worked out. I have confidence that I'm going to do this. It's going to work out. I don't have that if I don't have my athletic background. I'm probably not taking the risks that I'm taking, but I've built confidence. I have a really supportive wife who is confident in what we're doing together. And I don't think I'm doing any of this if I haven't had some athletic background or some of the confidence built off of the success we've had athletically.
Yeah. No, that's dope there. So as you mentioned though, I just kind of take us through how that deal kind of went. Like, okay, you start with an idea, like I want to have my practice, right? And you came up with the name and what you wanted to call it and everything like that. So what were kind of some of the steps you took into making this action happen? Did you go and search for the land yourself? Did you hire somebody? Kind of how did all that work? Stuff like that.
Sure.
What was your price point? What were you working with?
Yeah. One thing I learned is that dentists are very attractive lenders.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that. I had that to my advantage.
Dentists are attractive lenders.
Banks are not afraid to lend to dentists because we've got, as a profession, a pretty low default rate. So you could kind of use that to your advantage. I did as many things wrong as I think I've done right. And I get reminded that every year when I meet with my consultant. She's like, "You did what?" I said, "Yeah." So I graduated and immediately started looking for a established practice to buy. I didn't want to start one from the ground up. That's really expensive. So I started working for a guy who's great, and he and I still have a great relationship. But I pretty much told him from the get-go, if I find a practice that fits my needs, then I'm going to go ahead and pursue that. I had very little patience. So what I did, I just started calling around, or I'd actually get on Google, search for dentists. If they had a picture and they looked old, I wrote them a handwritten note just saying, "Hey, this might not be in your wheel."
Looks old, like my age, or what are we talking?
No, we're talking close, retirement age.
They look super old. Like Chris, you seen those still photos? It's like
this guy. And ultimately, and again, it was handwritten, and it was. Maybe this isn't something you're considering, but if you are, just trying to be as respectful as possible. But that's ultimately what connected me with the practice that I purchased.
How many notes did you send, Joe? Ish. And this was all in the greater Indianapolis area?
Yep.
Okay.
So
how many?
Anywhere within 30 minutes of where I was living at the time. Probably 70, 80.
Okay. Not a ton relative to.
That's a lot.
I would have expected that was a lot more.
No, yeah. I mean, and it was obviously, again, kind of tailored to who I thought this might work. But ultimately, that's how I got connected with the practice I bought. And what kind of really pushed me in that direction, this was the existing team dentist for the Colts. So this was my work of somewhat being involved in football while still doing
you got
my
the
professional. Yeah. And it worked out that I kind of met with the trainers at the Colts. We said, "Hey, he's transitioning out. I'm transitioning in." I'm younger in the profession, but they had faith in me. So we've maintained that relationship, and it's not anything crazy. We make their mouth guards and we see the players and coaches, their families for their routine dental work, and emergencies, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was at an existing practice that was just old. I mean, it was just dated, 20, 25 years old. And we were leasing a space in a professional building. So step 2 of this plan, buy a practice.
Wait, hang on. Go back to so you reach out to the guy. I assume it was a guy. Maybe it was a gal. Okay. The guy responds to your letter, calls you, sends you a letter back. I assume he didn't mail you a letter back. He probably called. So he calls you back and he says he's a single practitioner in the practice. And he's retirement age, a little bit older than me, allegedly. and he's saying, Joe, come work in my practice and let's find a way to buy me out, or come buy me out. Like, I'm always fascinated, like, structures, how he worked himself out of the practice. Cause like you said in the beginning, this is a relationship business, and you want, well, maybe you didn't say that. Maybe you said that before we press record, but it's a relationship business, and you want those clients or customers to come to you. So walk us through that for a second.
And this would be under the category of things we didn't do well. He was kind of being forced into retirement because he had a chronic shoulder injury. So dentistry was becoming harder and harder for him to do. He knew that I was a very motivated buyer. And we probably, I didn't, you don't know what you don't know. I probably didn't do the due diligence necessary on the practice itself. Yeah. I hear and the other big thing, I didn't really want this long transition. I had already worked when there was a senior doctor and I was the associate. And you see that everybody wants that senior doctor. Everyone wants what they're comfortable with. So even on the patients I was seeing, even if I was providing good work, there was always kind of that letdown of oh, well, I'm seeing you. And again, and I get it. I'm brand new. No one knows me. And, maybe they've been going to the other guy for 20 years. So we said, in an effort to try to avoid that confusion of who am I seeing today and who is this new guy, let's just have you stick around for like a couple of days. Just make sure I know how to do things. You go sail off into the sunset. And we wrote a letter and everything saying, hey, introducing the new owner. And then I'll just take it from there. And I think that worked well. In hindsight, we should have done about 6 months of overlap. Now, I bought it in January of 2020, so it doesn't matter. We shut down. I had only owned for 8 weeks before we had to shut it down. Yeah.
What were you thinking at the time? What were you like?
Looking up flights to Mexico. Like, can we get out from underneath this? I tried
so much
to take
for
that.
The bank. These are good underwriting risks. Dentists never go out of business. The banks were like, Jesus, what did we get ourselves
What did we
into?
do? What happened?
And this is where it goes back to, I am really glad that I bought like a smaller practice. I didn't want, my big thing when I was looking for a practice to buy, I didn't want to buy someone else's growth. And what I hope to do one day, and what every dentist hopes to do one day, build, get an idea of what that retirement age looks like. And you can do this in any business that you're going to sell. And then that last 2 or 3 years, you are just trying to ramp up as much as you possibly can, work yourself to the bone to drive that sales price up. So maybe you're adding a day of work. He was doing the opposite. His shoulder was hurting. So he was working less and less, and it brought the price point down quite a bit. And I said, okay, now I get to do the growth. Now I get to be the one to add a day, to add an extra employee here or there. And particularly when I still had bills, during COVID, that was a lifesaver, because the note on a $1.5 million practice would not have worked. Would not have worked.
Did the business just trade at a multiple of EBITDA upfront, or like a gross revenues, or how did the price point originally come about?
Yeah, we looked at, with dentistry being such an insurance-driven business, the best tell for how healthy a practice is new patient inflow and collections. How much are you collecting? Because you can say, well, I charged out $1 million last year, but insurance might only, between insurance and patient portion, if you're only collecting 550 of that, well, you don't have $1 million practice. You have a $550,000 practice. So we looked at 3 years of collections and then kind of took an average of that. The problem is when dentists or dental offices were, and they still are becoming a really hot target for private equity. And it's really difficult to compete with those guys. So I did end up offering 100% of his average collections, which 5 years prior, I would have gotten laughed at for. But that was the only way I was going to get this practice, because these private equity are taking 2.5 to 4% collections. But they're going to want that doctor to stay on. So what I had going in my favor was that this guy, he wasn't able to stay on even if he wanted to. So that whole private equity sector of getting into the dental, hopefully maybe one day I can benefit from that, but I'm lucky I got in when I did, because it's becoming super competitive.
Oh, I like to compete. Now we need to compete on the same team. So I'm in the private equity world too,
Well, let me build this thing up and come holler at me in 20 years and we'll see.
How long I got to wait? 20 years? Why I can't get in now with you?
Because then I got to give you some. I'm trying to eat what I killed for a while.
I hear you. I'm not bad at you.
Joe, did when you guys shut down, did you have any revenues? Like what happened? Indianapolis said you guys are all done, because I think Alec and I are here in Georgia, and we had a much more liberal approach to COVID. I mean, restaurants were open here in April of 2020, right? Like it was not. My parents are in New York. The Northeast experienced COVID much differently than we did here. What happened in Indy?
We were thankfully very progressive with it as well. But I had no revenue. I had nothing. And the problem is I didn't have any history for PPP. So all my buddies who are, business owners are saying, this is great. and I didn't have enough, I had 8 weeks and they didn't want, and I was a brand new LLC. So I said, well, here's the previous financials. We'll probably become close to that. And that wasn't going to fly. So thank goodness for my staff. They were all very understanding. But we were only closed for 6 weeks. So it could have been much, much worse. The moment we were able to open back up, we did. I still went in and saw emergencies, like life is still going to happen. So we did still have, I don't know, maybe a couple times a week I'd go in and do something. But then I guess we did benefit from this backflow. So we had really, really busy months post, and for being shut down for almost 2 months, the year wasn't as bad as what I expected, but there were 2 months of like, what do we do? Like how the landlord was thankfully understanding of the problem. The bank was understanding. I was able to pause a lot of my payments. So we, in hindsight, we were really, really worried. And
there you go. You got red shirted again on your first year.
Exactly.
It took a red shirt year.
I sure did.
Let's get it together. Now
red shirt dentistry. It's a new topic. It's a new category.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. You want to be starting day one when it comes to putting your name on the bill. We call it Holland Dental, and if I can't work, we can't work.
No, so. I hear you. But you was able to, like you say, you was able to just kind of, like you said, kind of pause and make some things in your plate to allow you to stay in it. Because a lot of people probably went under that time too, and went a whole different direction than what you went. And so I guess, so when you got in and you guys started back working, right? Like what is it like, I guess, on a day-to-day basis now in terms of are you there 5 days a week? You there every single day doing everything, and, kind of how everything works in there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the practice that I bought was, like I said, declining. He was only working 3 days a week. And that was a complaint from some of the patients being like, I want a Thursday appointment. You're never open Thursdays. So my goal was to, as quickly as we can, be there more often. And that meant get a 4th day. In order to do that, we had to just get more patients. So then we started focusing on the patient experience, doing providing a 5-star patient experience, and then marketing. So that was the majority. I'd say that first year, I didn't take any money from the practice. I kept it all in. And again, it goes back to a very supportive wife who thankfully has a good job. Because there was I had zero income from the practice for that entire year. Everything was going back into marketing, making sure my staff was taken care of, and then just minor improvements within the practice. I purchased this building almost a year ago to the day We just got moved in almost 6 months ago now. But kind of the same thing. It was like, hey, we're kind of going back to square one, where everything in here is brand new, and I love it, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it's that conversation that you got to have with yourself and your wife and whoever may be counting on you. Hey, we're going to go back to everything's going to stay in the practice for a while. Are we good with that? Hey, you're pregnant. We're going to have a kid in March. Are we good with that? And it was scary. Again, it's something that I sometimes laugh about that we did, but we just know that I'm happier here where I'm at with the new building. We're set up for success in the future, and it's these kind of short-term sacrifices for long-term gain. I should have that tattooed on my forehead, because that's basically been the mantra of my dental career so far. But you get excited that you feel like you're on the cusp of maybe starting to realize that long-term gain.
Yeah.
But the delayed gratitude can be tough. I mean, it can be tough. And that's been the name of the game so far.
No, I mean, I guess you can kind of say you're related to football in the sense of the journey to make it to a Super Bowl. Like, that's not an easy journey to do. And to even make it to the play, it's so hard to even make it to the playoff. Like, I literally made it one time, one winning season, right? And so,
and it goes back to what they say that journey to the Super Bowl starts in April, right? The off season or the draft, or you need to trust that the GM is going to get the right guy. You're getting the install in and OTAs, and just start.
It's so much
one.
that can happen all between to winning that thing, and in between when you start, like you said, from OTAs all the way up to the end of it. And no, man, this it's been good, man.
I think, Alec, the other thing too, Joe, is like people don't realize that, Joe at 45 with a successful practice, maybe multiple practices, you sell it, you get a big paycheck, everybody's proud of you. But they didn't know that you weren't taking salary for 2 years.
They
you were trying
have
to build
no clue
the business, right? And I think that delayed gratification thing, there's a lot of studies around successful people and their willingness to put in work without any reward yet, because they can see the long-term gain, right? And that's the thing, I think, regardless of if it's sport, professional, career, whatever it is, the people who are willing to put in the work every day, even though you might not get the reward today, ultimately get to compound those gains. We've had so many guys talk about, like, Anthony Tolliver played in the NBA for 11 years. I think out 16 teams.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think he's played for the most NBA teams in a career, or something like that. He bounced around a lot. And what he talked about was he would always stack his extra 20 minutes, the end of practice, all through high school. He's like, do you know how many extra shots I took versus the guy next to me? Because I would spend that extra 5, 10, 15 minutes and on a piece of his game. And he's like, those compound year over year over year. He's like, then I have hundreds and thousands more reps than the guy next to me. He's like, and that's why I was able to be successful. He kind of, like you, came through his collegiate career, not this huge lauded talent, not an Alec Ogletree, right? Like, right. He came through as a grinder.
Understand, man. Makes no sense. That makes no sense. You made it.
So, like, that's the thing I think is such an important lesson in your business, athletics, whatever, is those little incremental things that you do every day. It's 20 years from now that you see it, and then that's all people get to see is like, wow, look what Joe Holland has built. He's built a dental empire. But they weren't with you when, you guys are not taking any money and grinding out grocery bills.
Yeah. And in that part, it's day to day, like I'll have a good day. We're fortunate to have great patients here, and we have a day where everything goes super smooth, and I see the number at the end of the day, and you see that vision, and you're like, okay, this is how it happens. Mm-hmm. Then you have a day where it rains outside. No one wants to, go to an appointment, and I'm paying 4 employees to sit around and do nothing, and the sky is falling, and you just kind of have to try to find that level. And we're still not there. We're still very much here. Yeah. So, I really look forward to the day where, it's just here, or maybe even better, a little bit here. But that doesn't happen overnight. I got to keep reminding myself I've only been at this as an owner for 4 years. I think we all overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. I think I just keep telling myself these little things. And I think it's one of those things that if and when I'm fortunate enough to ever get there, I might not even know it. I might just say, life's good. Foster's growing up.
But the journey is where it's at, right? It doesn't matter once you get there. Like, if you're not enjoying the journey along the way, like, that's where all the magic is. No, it's no fun. Once you get the thing you want, it's not fun. It's the expectation. That's the fun part. Once you get it, you're like, well, that wasn't, like, what are we going to do next? Here, I do have a question in that, though. So, Joe, first time managing people. You said you had 4 employees. 5 employees, couple hygienists, couple administrative staff type people. This is your first time managing people, I think, right? What's the biggest lesson you've learned in that 4 years? Because I will tell you that the leadership of human beings in a business like yours is going to be critically important for them to execute on the vision you have. Give us what you've learned.
That I was almost kind of hoping we'd get there, because in speaking to athletes and speaking to former athletes, I severely overestimated what leadership skills I gained playing football, how they would translate to working in my dental office.
You mean if you yell at people and yell really loud, they don't go any faster?
I would say more personally, because I used to not have any problem getting into the face of a guy who missed a workout, like wouldn't even hesitate, or having a conversation with someone that might be a little difficult. And now I tiptoe around those, because I know that I'm talking to a different type of person. It's not better or worse. It's just, you build up these leadership traits. Like you said, some yelling involved, or you don't have to walk on eggshells around a teammate. They know, the expectations are set. You can't lead that same way, and it's not apples to apples at all. So I think the big thing was learning an appropriate way to lead people when you can't kind of fall back on just the aggressiveness, and the biggest thing was you have to set, just like on a football team, the expectations have to be set and they have to be understood. And that's tough to do when I don't have any business background whatsoever. Like I mentioned, the bank was more than happy to give me money without asking many questions. I think they said, "Can you fix a tooth?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Here you go." So that's tough to do when I'm learning as well. Mm-hmm. And they're kind of going through it with me.
With you.
So I don't have the ability to exude all this confidence in saying, we built the vision together, kind of. I wanted to completely revamp the practice I bought. And I have one hygienist that's been with me from the get-go. I'm able to treat her a little differently than the rest, because she was there from day one. She was there during COVID. She was there when I had no idea, with insurance and that stuff. So I don't need to be on her. I don't need to really, she understands and she sees where we're going. And if she didn't, she probably would have jumped ship. The rest of my employees are otherwise relatively new. And it's just all about, what are the expectations, setting those expectations. And then I need to do my part to lift everybody up to those.
Yeah. I think part of too, like in that leadership role is like understanding, it's just, it really is it's the same thing. Like, I know you say you really can't, you can't do some of everything that you did in the football field. Like, it's just a different thing. But in terms of the communication part of talking to the employees and stuff like that, like, you have different players and like this person just learns differently. Like the only way for them to understand is if you have to say it to them like this. Like you could say it a million times this way, but it just doesn't click for them or whatever. But you understand how this person learns too, right? And so, to me, dealing with your employees is like, okay, how do they really digest the information that I give out? Like, because when you look at a game plan or you have a game plan, like you have the vision, you have all this, they looking to you as a leader, all that stuff, right? And yes, it's a collective thing. You guys are growing together, but you have a lot of information that you could give them like that, the coaches, they will give you a lot of information on whatever team you play, right? But it's up to you to digest what you need for you to be successful in that practice. Right. So
I think the other thing too, Alec, is people want to be a part of something. So if Joe can set a vision that they see, and whatever, we want to be, have the most 5-star Google reviews in the greater Indianapolis area, whatever that vision is. I think when people feel like they're a part of it and help develop it, Joe, that's where you get the buy-in. Alec, just like in a football team where whatever the expectation is, we're going to be a playoff team, we're going to win 10 games, whatever. If the team has bought in, then you essentially can point to that expectation every day and be like, does that help us get here? And if everybody's bought in on the expectation, then it's like, well, then why are we, if you're not helping us get there, why are we doing it?
Right. And Alec, I thought that was a great point. How people learn differently, people respond to criticism differently. I mean, you can't just have this umbrella of leadership and just say everyone falls under this. I think the best thing that I've done, and this is not an original, this is not organic, it's just other dentists that have done this, and been successful. Do social stuff with your staff, get to know them outside of the clinical workplace, and you'll get a feel for them. And once you get to know them on a personal that's your team. And once you get to know them on a personal level, the leadership becomes that much easier. Hey, this person responds well to this while this one doesn't. I need to adjust how I'm speaking to each person. That obviously becomes a lot more challenging. But with 5 people, when you get more people, but with 5, I think it's reasonable for me to be the best leader for them.
Yeah.
I should know them each on a very individual level. And that's been big for us.
For sure. Yeah. No, you still have to like be yourself. Like it can't be something where I don't think it has to be something where you're getting outside of yourself, like being true who you are, how you lead and stuff like that. But it is also a kind of a fine line of understanding how people operate just in a difference, so.
And Alec, people sniff that out.
Yeah.
When you're not you, they know.
Like, no,
they know you're putting on a game. Like they're like, that's not Joe.
No. I know that's not him. For sure. So no, man, we won't hold you too much longer. But I guess kind of one of the final questions I have would be, one, what are your future plans? I guess we kind of already answered that, I guess, a little bit for your practice. 2, I need to come get a clean at some point.
You've got the nicest teeth of all of us. I think you're
when I come up, I need to just take a look at it, just let me know what I need to have done. And 3, where do if people want to get in touch with you, find you and all this stuff, you just kind of tell us about, where they can get at you at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
The future plan is ever changing, and that's what we want, right? We're just kind of adjusting to what's going on. The property that I bought it's on 1.5 acres on a really busy road that gets anywhere between 15 to 20,000 cars a day. And right up the street from us is nothing but residential development. That's kind of why we chose this spot. So I think we've been here 6 months. I'm going to really, really know where we're at in probably another 6 months in terms of what is predictable growth. And then the lot that I have next door is almost an acre. So talking about dentistry just kind of being an avenue into other revenue sources if I could build myself another practice and get somebody else in on that practice into a nice big updated building, that would probably be that kind of 10-year plan. Because then we're collecting, some rent from another very, very reliable professional. We're trying to get a dentist in there. And we're beating, in my opinion, we're beating the growth. Hopefully we're setting roots in an area that is just continuing to grow. So we're going to be here. And the hope is that a bunch, other people are heading into this area. We're on the northwest side of Indianapolis in a suburb called Zionsville. It's very suburbia. It's perfect. It's exactly where I want to be. Neighborhoods, grocery stores, restaurants, it's a great place. It's going to be a great place to grow a family. It's a very growing and developing area. So part of the reason why I wanted to get in on this land so quickly is, like I said, I wanted to be here as the development grows around.
In the path of progress.
That's right. My Zionsville, Indiana. I could hit a driver basically to Indianapolis, so we're right on the outskirts. But it's like I said, the northwest suburb of. It's where a lot of the Colts players, Colts coaches, a lot of those guys are moving up here.
Okay.
It's a nice little spot. My practice is Holland Dental. Got real original with the name. And hollanddental.net. Hollanddental.com was already taken. So hollanddental.net is the website. We're doing a lot of cool things. We talked before you press record about my relationship with some of the Colts and talking with, about making grills for these guys and stuff like that. And, I think it's a really, not that I've done that. I've entertained the idea.
Who's going to be the first? Who's on the Colts right now?
I've got all the goods for it, but I know you don't have to worry about my cost. It's the jeweler's cost you got to worry about. But I think it's a really fun time to be practicing dentistry. It's so much better than it was even 10 years ago. It's so much more comfortable. I think our goal here is we talk about with patients all the time, trying to, overcome that bad experience you had when you were 5 years old and it just sits with you. A couple good experiences can kind of help you get over that. So, we're just trying to build something, by offering good service and try to have some fun while we're doing it.
Awesome. Y'all gonna have massages in there? Like they give people massages and stuff? What?
No.
Come on, man! Like a hot rag, a hot towel while you just sit there.
I'm getting into like Botox and some of that stuff, but I don't need masseuses running around and getting the nails done while you're getting we got to draw a line somewhere. And I know people practices do that. It's great, and if it fits them, then great. But that's not me.
No lie. I go to this one practice here. It's called Atlanta Cosmetic Dentistry. And they have like people in there like massaging your hands and all that stuff like that.
There's a practice that in Indy that does this. Now, if the practice down the street, if they start doing it, then I'll do it.
Oh man, come on, you be the first. Come on.
That's just another mouth to feed.
Go ahead and set the trend.
We're still in the growth phase. Remember,
you go get the guys in. The guys will be in. They're like, okay, yeah, I need to take care of my teeth.
Yeah, they won't be caring about their teeth. Trying to get those shoulder.
No,
I'm going to finish with this one, Joe. What do you wish you knew? Let's say 49ers. You're in training camp. Like, what do you wish you knew now, 10 years out, that you came out of your playing career with? It could be business. It could be life. Anything.
Yeah, that's another good one. I think the financial literacy is tough because you spend so much time. It's hard to play college football and not worry about anything but college football. And I'll say that I do. It's easy to get envious of some of your friends that maybe didn't play. I would never trade my experience for the world, but I think some of the experiences they had, maybe working a little bit earlier than I did, like Alex said, maybe being able to take some classes that weren't available to fit in your practice schedule, you can really set yourself up for success at 21, 22, 23 years old. And you have to commit to doing it. And again, you don't know what you don't know, But I already know for Foster, we're going to have him set up for success at a much earlier age. My parents did incredible job with it, and I couldn't ask them for anything more. But I think you get so set in this athletic and sports mindset. There's some pretty solid years of your life in the early 20s that can really set you up for success down the road. And I know there's a lot of people on social media that are kind of starting to work on this financial literacy. Obviously, it's something that you guys are doing. And I think that's so important because I didn't do any of that. And my wife and I would be in a better position now if we started putting some money aside, if we started taking advantage of some of the, pre-tax options with her work as a W-2 employee. I've been self-employed pretty much from the get-go. But we're learning in our mid-30s now what was available, a decade ago. And I think I would encourage everyone to, at least if you have the means, or I would have encouraged myself when I was getting some practice squad money, to set some aside and just let it sit. And, when the day comes to take that out, or even now, even buying, spending 7 figures on a real estate deal, how much that could have helped kind of really set us up for success there. So again, wouldn't change anything for the world, but if I could have given myself a little advice, that would be it.
Time and compounding, the 2 most important investment principles in the planet.
Yes, sir.
Joe, a real pleasure. I appreciate you walking us through your story and sharing some of your advice. Hopefully there's somebody out there who heard you and is now going to become a dentist. They've been inspired
just
by
not
you
on the north side
and
of
your love of teeth.
Just don't come my way. I want no more competition.
Actually bring it on.
Yeah.
Right, Alec?
I'll run all right.
We appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yes, sir. Right, appreciate you, Joe.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Game. Please like, subscribe, comment on your favorite platform. It helps others find the show.